this was a tough game. This is a tough game. It's a tough round for Frio fans here because not only do you lose a bad game against Brisbane, but West Coast, they look really good against Melbourne. Of course, we'll get to that game here in a second. But the Lions get just their second win since Hipwood tore his ACL. They bounce back from their loss to Hawthorn. And this is on the back of a fantastic performance by both Joe Danaher and Dane Zorko as they both put on the show. Danaher with 4 goals. Zorko led the game with 34 disposals and 17 contested possessions in this one. And for on the Frio side, it seems like maybe just Sean Darcy and Travis Collier were the only ones that were trying to kick this team's butt and try to get them into the finals because they look like they're almost dragging a lifeless corpse along at times during this game. Darcy finished with another 29 hitouts and a goal. And then, Travis finished with 3 goals in this one. And Frio's finals hopes just took a huge, huge hit.
Yeah, unfortunately, this a worst possible time for a stinker happened against a Brisbane Lions team that just needed a little bit of positive momentum. And unfortunately, Frio obliged. And it just really, really stinks because I this Frio team just they have so much energy. They had so much energy coming off some of those wins that I again these Western Australian teams just keep baffling me. As soon as I think I've got it figured out, I don't. And unfortunately now Frio, this loss absolutely killed their percentage to the point where they're even behind St. Kilda. So it's even harder for them. I mean, they'd have to win out and win out big in both games, and unfortunately neither game is easy for them to win. So unfortunately I don't see that happening. But just a tough one. This was hard to watch, especially getting there late because I really wanted Frio to have a good game and to
Mm-hmm.
maybe pull this out
Mm-hmm.
and to just to see how things would go. Like, could they stay in the finals hunt? And unfortunately, it just was not meant to be.
Yeah, and then if it gets tougher because technically they are still in there for a chance, but it's going to be even tougher. Obviously, I mean their season easily comes down to this Sydney Derby, or excuse me, not the Sydney Derby. I again my Derby's confused there, but this showdown there in Perth, um, it and it's like I said, it's getting even tougher because West Coast was not. Let's roll into this West Coast and Melbourne game because West Coast wasn't really looking good the last handful of rounds here. But even though they lose to Melbourne, they looked a lot better in this game than they have as of late. And I mean, maybe it's just the little Perth magic there going on at Optus, but who knows? They could bring a lot of this momentum into their next round game with Fremantle, and either team, whoever team loses this, is out very well out of the finals. Fremantle might be already. West Coast definitely has a lot on the line in this game. But speaking about West Coast and Melbourne specifically, this is a really fun game because we saw some a little bit of wet weather footy. There was that about a was a half hour stoppage that took place in the fourth term due to lightning. But man, if you look at the scoring in this one, it didn't really look like the rain was coming down all that hard because they still put up plenty of points and they were still pretty effective with the offense in this one, 72-63 with the final score. Obviously, a little bit more inaccuracy, but even without the rain, I'm not surprised that these two teams ended with the same goals and behinds as what they ended up coming out with. But here in this one, you had West Coast. They almost pull off the upset or the comeback in this one. They were down 30 points in the fourth term, and they bring it back. They bring it back real down close here. They actually kicked the last 4 goals of the game, and maybe this was even spurred by that stoppage due to the lightning. But they just fall just short. Their two main guys, Kenny and Darling, they combined for 4 as they end up being the most effective goal scorers for this Eagles team. And if you want to talk really the three-headed buzzsaw that was the Melbourne side in this game was Ben Brown, Christian Petrarca, and Clayton Oliver as Ben Brown kicks 3 goals and Petrarca and Oliver combined for 56 disposals in this one, both of them with 28.
Yeah, this was a game that was kind of up until the lightning stoppage. Melbourne dominated this game.
Mm-hmm.
West Coast just looked inept at times, and it was kind of sad to see. I mean, I think a lot of people expected West Coast was going to give Melbourne a little bit of a run. Melbourne's kind of on shaky a little bit terms. West Coast Eagles have been kind of a team that people have kind of kicked a little bit because they've kind of pick and choose when they've decided to play. The lightning break happened, and I don't know if it sapped the energy out of Melbourne or if the West Coast kind of went, okay, we're going to have to go now.
Mm-hmm.
And because the game flipped. I mean, if it weren't for that lightning break, I think this is a 20, 30 point win for Melbourne. I don't think this is ever a close game. West Coast came back out and was absolutely electric, and the fans started getting into it to the point where, like I said, this game, the final score is completely not indicative of the way this game was. This was a
Mm-hmm.
20 point, 30 point game most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at the final score. I mean, yes, it's great. It's a 9 point win. That's awesome. Melbourne wins the game, but this unfortunately is a little bit of fool's gold because the last 10, 12 minutes after they came back from the lightning break was really the only time that West Coast actually looked up and about and in this game of footy. So again, a big win for the Demons, puts them back at the top of the ladder. So we'll have to see how that goes. And again, another West Coast loss again keeps them in the mire down there in the bottom of the ladder to where they're still fighting to keep their finals hopes alive.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, but there's a couple things here. Is do you think Melbourne can end up holding on to their top spot on the ladder here? Um, like with the last couple of games ago, if we want to pull up Melbourne's last couple remaining games, their opponents that they have to cap out the season is Adelaide and a huge one against Geelong. And so right now they do just have those 2 points ahead of those teams. Do you think it comes down to that last game of the season?
Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
I think they should beat the Adelaide Crows. I think they've
Emphasis
got
on
just a little.
should.
Again, well, we
Right.
saw earlier in the year, but again, this will be in Melbourne. This won't be at the Adelaide Oval, so I think it might be a tiny bit of a different game. You have no Tex Walker. This is a completely. I think this is a completely different game. I think the D should win this game. The last game of the year is such. It's a crapshoot. I mean, if I'm being honest with myself, it's down in GMHBA, which the Cats usually play well. Well,
Mm-hmm.
but they just lost to a GWS team that who also have knocked off Melbourne. So we'll really have to kind of see who's healthy, who's not in that game, who's playing, who's not, who's in form, who's not. That last game, there's so many different ways it could go. I mean, I think the winner of that game could potentially be top of the ladder by the end of that game and through the off season, but we'll have to see. I mean, there's still a few. The doggies are still in it, and Port Adelaide's still got a shot too. So we'll really have to see. But I'm that could be the marquee matchup of the final round, just because that and the Western Bulldogs Port Adelaide game are literally the two matchups in the final round that's going to have everybody in their seats because two wins certain ways could see the Dogs in Melbourne third and fourth and Port Adelaide and Geelong 1-2. That's
Mm-hmm.
how crazy the final round could be.
Mm-hmm.